The afternoon sun hung lazily in the sky as she stepped out of the small grocery store, clutching a brown paper bag in her arms. She wasn't dressed in fancy clothes, just a simple, faded blue dress and a pair of worn-out sandals. Her hair was tied back in a loose ponytail, and her face carried the quiet exhaustion of someone who had worked hard all her life. She hadn't eaten since morning, and her stomach growled as she passed by a small but elegant restaurant. The smell of freshly baked bread and roasted meat wafted through the air, making her pause. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to treat herself, just this once. The moment she pushed the door open, the chatter inside dipped slightly. A few well-dressed customers glanced her way, their eyes lingering just a second too long on her old dress and scuffed shoes. She ignored them and walked up to the host, a young man in a crisp black suit. "Table for one, please," she said softly. The host looked her up and down, his polite smile turning stiff. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but this is a reserved establishment." She blinked. "There are empty tables." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "Those are for our customers." The unspoken words hung in the air, "Not for someone like you." Her cheeks burned, but she kept her voice steady. "I just want a meal. I can pay." The host exhaled sharply, as if she were wasting his time. "Look, maybe try the diner down the street. It's more suitable." A few nearby diners snickered. Her grip tightened on the paper bag, her knuckles turning white. Without another word, she turned and walked out, the door swinging shut behind her with a soft click. Outside, the air felt heavier. She took a deep breath, fighting back the sting in her eyes. It wasn't the first time she had been treated this way, but it never got easier. Just as she was about to walk away, the sound of a powerful engine cut through the street. A sleek black Porsche rolled to a stop right in front of the restaurant. The windows were tinted, but she didn't need to see inside, she knew that car. The restaurant door burst open, and the same host rushed out, his face suddenly eager. "Sir. Welcome. Do you have a reservation?" The Porsche's door opened, and a tall man in an impeccably tailored suit stepped out. His sharp eyes locked onto the woman standing frozen on the sidewalk. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made the host stiffen. "Why is my wife standing outside?" The host's face went pale. His mouth opened, then closed like a fish out of water. The well-dressed man didn't wait for an answer, he walked straight past him, his polished shoes clicking against the pavement as he approached his wife. She looked up at him, her eyes a mix of embarrassment and quiet relief. "I didn't know you were coming," she murmured. He gently took the paper bag from her hands, his thumb brushing over her rough fingers, the same hands that had worked tirelessly for years, the same hands that had held him when he had nothing. His voice softened. "I got off work early. Thought I'd surprise you." Behind them, the host shifted nervously. "Yes, sir, there must be a misunderstanding." The billionaire didn't even turn around. "Was my wife not allowed inside?" The host swallowed hard. The other restaurant staff had gathered near the entrance, their expressions uneasy. A few customers had stopped eating, watching the scene unfold. The woman touched her husband's arm. "It's fine. Let's just go." But he wasn't having it. He turned slowly, his gaze locking onto the host. "You told her this place was reserved?" The host stammered, "We have a dress code." "A dress code?" The billionaire's voice was dangerously calm. He looked at his wife's simple dress, then back at the host. "She's wearing more class than anyone in that room." Silence. The host's collar seemed to tighten around his neck. The billionaire didn't raise his voice, but every word cut deep. "You judged her by her clothes. But let me tell you something, this woman worked 3 jobs so I could eat when I had nothing. She slept on the floor so I could study. She's the reason I'm standing here today." He paused. "And you dared to turn her away?" The host had no answer. The billionaire didn't wait for one. He took his wife's hand. Come on. Let's eat somewhere that deserves your presence. As they walked toward the Porsche, the restaurant's manager rushed out, flustered. Sir. Please, let us make this right. The billionaire didn't even glance back. Too late. The car door closed with a smooth click, leaving the restaurant staff standing in stunned silence. Inside the Porsche, the woman let out a slow breath. You didn't have to do that. He reached over, squeezing her hand. Yes, I did. She smiled faintly, looking out the window. Where are we going? He grinned. Somewhere they'll treat you like a queen. As the Porsche glided through the city streets, the woman watched the buildings blur past, her mind drifting back to simpler times. The leather seats, the quiet hum of the engine, it all felt so different from how life used to be. Her husband glanced at her. You're quiet. She smiled softly. Just thinking. About? About the first time we met. A warmth flickered in his eyes. He reached over and turned down the music, letting the memory fill the space between them. 10 years earlier. The rain came down in sheets that night. She was working the late shift at a 24-hour diner, wiping counters and refilling coffee for truck drivers and night owls. Her feet ached, her apron was stained, but she never complained. She needed the job. Then the door chimed. A soaked young man stumbled in, shivering. His clothes were worn, his shoes falling apart. He didn't even have an umbrella, just a tattered backpack slung over one shoulder. She didn't hesitate. Sit anywhere. I'll get you some coffee. He looked up, surprised. Most places turned him away when he looked like this. But not her. When she brought the coffee, he stared at the steaming cup like it was gold. I don't have much money. She shrugged. It's on the house. He tried to protest, but she was already walking away. Later, when his clothes had dried a little, she slid a plate of eggs and toast in front of him. He looked at it, then at her. I can't. Eat, she said firmly. You look like you haven't in days. He ate like a starving man. She pretended not to notice, busying herself with wiping tables. When he finished, he hesitated, then pulled out a wrinkled resume from his bag. Do you know if this place is hiring? She studied him, the sharp intelligence in his eyes, the quiet determination. This wasn't just some down-on-his-luck guy. This was someone with fire in him. She took the resume. I'll talk to my boss. Back in the Porsche. The billionaire chuckled. You lied to your boss for me. She smirked. I didn't lie. I just said you were a hard worker. And then I spilled an entire tray of drinks on my first day. She laughed, a real, unfiltered sound that made him grin. You were terrible at that job. But you kept covering for me. Her smile softened. Because I saw something in you. He squeezed her hand. You were the only one who did. For a moment, they just drove in comfortable silence, the past wrapping around them like an old blanket. Then she tilted her head. Where are we going? He smirked. You'll see. The Porsche turned onto a quiet street lined with old brick buildings. She recognized this place. It wasn't fancy, just a small, family-run cafe with chipped paint and a flickering neon sign. The same place they used to go when they couldn't afford anything else. She raised an eyebrow. Here? He parked and turned off the engine. Best food in the city. She laughed. We only thought that because it was all we could afford. He grinned. Then let's see if nostalgia tastes as good as memory. 10 years earlier. The diner job didn't last. He really was terrible at it, too distracted, always scribbling numbers and ideas on napkins when he should have been refilling drinks. But she didn't let him give up. One evening after his shift, she found him sitting on the curb outside, head in his hands. Fired, she guessed, sitting beside him. He nodded miserably. She nudged him with her shoulder. Good. You were awful at it. He huffed a laugh, then sighed. I know I can do something. I have ideas. But no one will even look at me. She studied his rough hands, the dark circles under his eyes. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded stack of bills. His eyes widened. What? Tips from this week, she said. Enough for a decent shirt, a haircut, and bus fare to those business offices you keep talking about. He tried to push it back. I can't take your money. You're not taking it, she said firmly. You're borrowing it. And you'll pay me back when you're rich. He stared at her. You really believe that'll happen? She shrugged. I believe in you. That's enough for now. Present day, inside the cafe. The same worn booth. The same sticky table. The same elderly owner behind the counter, though his hair was grayer now. The owner squinted at them, then his face lit up. You too. Back from the dead. She beamed. You remember us? Remember you? The owner laughed. You paid your bill in loose change one night. I thought you'd never come back. The billionaire smiled. We owed you a proper payment. The owner waved a hand. Sit, sit. Same as always? They nodded. As the owner shuffled off, she looked around. The place hadn't changed, same cracked vinyl seats, same faded posters on the walls. But it felt different now. Warmer. Her husband tapped the table. This is where you gave me your tips. She smirked. Worst investment ever. Took you years to pay me back. He grew serious. I never really did, though. Not in the ways that matter. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing his. Yes, you did. Every single day. The owner returned with 2 steaming mugs. On the house. For old times. As they clinked cups, the billionaire's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then stiffened. She frowned. What's wrong? He turned the screen toward her. A news headline. High-end restaurant faces backlash after turning away billionaire's wife. Beneath it, a flood of comments. The host's name was everywhere. The restaurant's reputation was crumbling in real time. She set down her mug. Oh no. The cafe's cheerful clatter of dishes and murmured conversations suddenly felt distant as she stared at the phone screen. Her chest tightened. This wasn't just gossip, it was a storm. And it had her face at the center. She pushed the phone back toward him. How did this even happen? He rubbed his temple. Someone must have filmed it. Or recognized me. The owner, sensing the shift, discreetly walked away. She wrapped her hands around her mug, the heat barely registering. This is too much. Her husband studied her face, the way her brows pinched, the way she bit the inside of her cheek when anxious. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. We can make it stop. She shook her head. It's already out there. Meanwhile, at the restaurant. The host, the same young man who had turned her away, stood frozen in the employee break room, his phone trembling in his hand. His social media was flooded. Tags, mentions, angry comments. His workplace's rating plummeted in real time. A coworker slapped a newspaper on the table. The headline was brutal, judged by her dress, not her worth, how a snob server messed with the wrong couple. The manager stormed in, face red. Do you have any idea what you've done? The host's mouth went dry. I didn't know who she was. That's the point, the manager snapped. You were never supposed to judge anyone like that. His phone buzzed again. A notification: your employment has been terminated. Back at the cafe. She exhaled sharply. They're tearing that place apart. And that host, he's just a kid. Her husband's jaw tightened. He humiliated you. And now thousands are humiliating him. She met his eyes. We've been there. You know what it's like to have nothing. A beat of silence. He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. What do you want to do? She traced the rim of her mug. I want to go back. His brows shot up. Back? Not to gloat, she said quietly. To fix this. Later that evening. The restaurant was nearly empty. A few brave, or oblivious, diners sat scattered at tables, but the usual buzz was gone. The staff moved like ghosts, their smiles strained. Then the door opened. Every head turned as the couple walked in. The manager paled. The servers froze. She stepped forward, her simple dress the same as before. This time, no one stopped her. The manager rushed over, hands clasped. Ma'am. Sir. We deeply apologize. She cut him off gently. Where is he? A pause. Then, with a shaky breath, the manager gestured to the back. The kitchen. The host, now former host, sat on an upturned crate, his head in his hands. When the door swung open, he flinched. Then he saw her. He shot to his feet, eyes wide. I'm so sorry. She shook her head. Stop. Silence. She studied him, the way his shoulders hunched, the fear in his eyes. Just a kid, really. She remembered her husband at that age. Hungry. Desperate. You were wrong, she said simply. But this? She gestured to the phone in his hand, still glowing with hateful messages. This isn't justice. He swallowed hard. Why are you here? Because everyone deserves a second chance. She glanced at her husband, who stood silently behind her. We got ours. The host's eyes welled up. He looked at the billionaire. You're not here to ruin me. The billionaire stepped forward. My wife doesn't want that. So neither do I. He paused. But you're going to learn. Starting tomorrow, you'll work at a shelter downtown. Understand? The host nodded frantically. She smiled slightly. Good. Then, to the manager, and take him back. Everyone makes mistakes. The manager gaped. You'd really do that? Her husband slid an arm around her shoulders. She would. I'd have burned this place down. She elbowed him. But she was smiling. The ride home was quiet. Streetlights flickered past the car windows as the city hummed around them. She leaned her head against the glass, watching the blur of neon signs and late-night traffic. Her husband kept stealing glances at her. Finally, he spoke. You're too soft, you know that. She smiled without looking at him. And you're not? He grunted. I wanted to bury that place. I know. She reached over, her fingers threading through his. But you didn't. His grip tightened slightly. Only for you. 5 years earlier, their first real home. The apartment was small, just one bedroom, a kitchenette, and a bathroom that always smelled faintly of mildew. But it was theirs. No more couch surfing, no more shelters. She came home from her shift at the pharmacy to find him pacing like a caged animal, a crumpled check in his hand. They bought it, he said hoarsely. The app. They bought it. She dropped her bag. What? He thrust the check at her. Look. The number made her dizzy. She sat down hard on their second-hand couch. This is real? He laughed, wild and disbelieving. It's real. Then he grabbed her, spinning her around until they were both breathless with laughter. Later, as they lay tangled in sheets that they had bought new for once, he traced her collarbone and said, "No more work for you. No more anything. Just, whatever you want." She propped herself up on one elbow. "What I want?" He nodded, eyes bright. She kissed his forehead. "Then I want to keep my job." He blinked. "What?" "And we're not moving," she added. "Not yet." "But," he gestured around at the peeling wallpaper. "Look at this place." She did. Then she looked at him. "I see everything I need." The elevator doors opened directly into their apartment, a sprawling space of floor-to-ceiling windows and sleek furniture. She kicked off her sandals by the door, the marble cool under her feet. Her husband loosened his tie, watching her pad across the room to the balcony. He followed, leaning against the doorframe. "You're thinking about the old apartment," he guessed. She smiled. "How'd you know?" "Because I am too." He came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist as the city glittered below. "You were right, you know. About not moving right away." She leaned back into him. "I know." He kissed her hair. "You're always right. Also no." He laughed, the vibration warm against her back. For a long moment, they just stood there, the night air soft around them. Then she turned in his arms, studying his face, the faint lines that hadn't been there years ago, the flecks of gray in his stubble. "Tomorrow," she said, "let's go back to the cafe." He raised an eyebrow. "Again?" She nodded. "I want pancakes." The morning sun spilled through the penthouse windows as she stood by the coffee machine, watching the dark liquid drip into her chipped, "World's Best Employee" mug, a joke gift from him years ago that she'd never replaced. The news played quietly on the tablet nearby, showing footage of the restaurant's manager making a public apology. She reached over and turned it off. Her husband walked in, already dressed in one of his sharp suits, but barefoot. He paused when he saw her expression. "Still thinking about it?" She handed him his coffee, black, 2 sugars, just like he'd always taken it even when they could only afford instant. "They're making too big a deal out of this." He shrugged. "People love drama." She studied him over the rim of her mug. "You didn't have anything to do with the news coverage, did you?" The corner of his mouth twitched. "Would you be mad if I did?" "Yes." "Then no." He sipped his coffee. "But I may have encouraged some investors to reconsider their partnerships." She sighed but couldn't quite suppress her smile. "You're impossible." Downtown shelter, 9 a.m. The former host stood awkwardly by the shelter's entrance, his designer shoes already scuffed from the morning's work sorting donations. When he saw her walk in, his shoulders hunched like he expected to be struck. "You came back," he mumbled. She handed him a stack of clean towels. "Told you I would." He took them gingerly. "Why are you doing this?" She considered the question as she began organizing canned goods. "When my husband first got his big check," she said finally, "the first thing he wanted to do was buy me a diamond necklace." The host blinked, clearly unsure where this was going. "I told him I'd rather have groceries." She smiled at the memory. He was so confused. "But that necklace wouldn't have kept us fed." The host looked down at his hands. "I get it now. What you were trying to show me yesterday." She nodded toward an elderly man coming through the door. "Then go help Mr. Henderson with his walker. And this time, look him in the eyes when you do." The restaurant, noon. The manager nearly dropped his clipboard when they walked in. The lunch crowd buzzed around them, but she noticed the changes immediately, new signage about their "all are welcome" policy, staff training materials visible in the office. "We've implemented new protocols," the manager said hurriedly. Sensitivity training, dress code revisions. She held up a hand. We're not here to inspect you. Her husband slid a card across the host stand. Reservation for 2. The manager's eyes widened at the name. But, after everything, you'd actually eat here? She took her husband's arm. Everyone deserves a second chance. Even you. As they were seated, she noticed the staff watching them, not with fear now, but something closer to awe. Her husband leaned in. This was your idea, wasn't it? Coming back here. She unfolded her napkin. Had to see if the food was worth the attitude. He laughed, loud enough that several diners turned to look. In that moment, he wasn't a billionaire, just a man laughing with his wife. Later that afternoon. As they stepped outside, a reporter suddenly blocked their path, camera crew in tow. Mr. and Mrs. Laurent. Could we get a statement about? Her husband's arm tightened around her. No comment. But the public wants to know. She surprised them both by speaking up. They should know the shelter on 5th needs volunteers. Then she nudged her husband. Race you to the car. As they dashed for the Porsche like kids, the reporter's shouts fading behind them, she realized something. The world might see them differently now, but between them? Nothing had changed at all. The bell above the cafe door jingled the same way it had 10 years ago. The smell of frying butter and strong coffee wrapped around them like an old friend as they took their usual booth, the one by the window with the wobbly leg that still rocked when you leaned on it. The owner shuffled over, his apron dusted with flour. Pancakes and black coffee? She grinned. You remember. The old man tapped his temple. Never forget my best customers. He glanced at her husband's tailored suit. Even when they dress fancy now. As the owner walked away, she ran her fingers over the table's scratches and dents, each one a memory. Her husband watched her, his eyes soft. You miss it, he realized aloud. She didn't hesitate. Sometimes. Not the struggle. Never the hunger or the fear. But the simplicity. The certainty that every small victory was theirs. Across town. The former host wiped sweat from his brow as he stacked cans at the shelter. His designer clothes were long gone, replaced by a simple t-shirt and jeans. Mr. Henderson shuffled over, eyeing the neat rows. You're getting better at this. The young man smiled, really smiled, for the first time in days. Had a good teacher. He didn't notice the woman in the corner snapping a photo. Didn't see it spread across social media an hour later with the caption, "Real change looks like this." Back at the cafe. The pancakes arrived, golden and perfect. She drenched hers in syrup, he stole a bite when she wasn't looking, just like always. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, a news alert with the host's photo. She turned it off. Her husband raised an eyebrow. Not curious? She shook her head, mouth full. Some stories aren't mine to follow. He studied her, the syrup on her chin, the way sunlight caught the gray strands in her hair that hadn't been there years ago. The most powerful man in the room, utterly captivated. The owner refilled their coffees. You two ever think about buying this place? She laughed. And ruin the best cafe in town? Never. Her husband squeezed her hand under the table. When she met his eyes, she saw everything they'd been, hungry kids sharing a plate of fries, nervous newlyweds scraping together rent, and now this. Still them. Still here. The bell jingled again. A family walked in, young parents with a toddler, the baby's face smeared with jam. She watched them squeeze into a booth, the way the father gently wiped the child's cheeks. Her husband followed her gaze. What? She turned back to him, her eyes bright. Nothing. Just, everything. He didn't need explanation. He never had. Outside, the city moved on, scandals faded, news cycles changed. But in that small booth, time stood perfectly still. She stole the last bite of his pancakes. He pretended to protest. The sun climbed higher. And somewhere beyond the glass, life went beautifully, wonderfully on.